Hi, I'm Michael Clayton. I'm one of the patients working with Dr. Royster. I've met with her about 5 times in the last 2 weeks. And specifically, my last meeting on Thursday, which was about 4 days ago, I was able to express to her some of the stresses, as I have every time we met. She's known now the pattern of what I go through on a day-to-day basis, and has tailored, given me some tools to help me in my process to deal with some of those stresses that I battle with daily. We went over some techniques of how I respond. Being a football player, being very aggressive and passionate, you don't see how that affects a person in communication. You feel like you are right because you have good intentions, but your body language, your tone may be perceived in a different way. And for someone who isn't enlightened fully about what those triggers cause on the other end, you're stuck blindly living a life that you feel like just because you have good intentions and you have a good heart, you think you're okay. So what I was able to recognize, and specifically in our last meeting, is that there were techniques that she introduced to me that could be very beneficial to me. She listened to my story, how I would respond, as I completely gave her honestly and openly what I was dealing with. The only way to get help is to be honest and open. And she would listen to me, and she kind of told me some techniques. One specifically was how to respond in a conversation when there are tempers involved or stresses involved. I'm a person that likes to speak in truth, but the reality is that isn't always good. There is a tact to skillfully have a conversation with someone where you need to focus on the result that you want, not being right or being true. So going into that deeper understanding of finding your weaknesses in your truth was very invaluable to me. The way that I respond, she said that I needed to focus on not responding in truth, but saying, I feel. And there was a conversation as soon as I left her office, or as we were talking, probably about 20 minutes after she told me the techniques. I wrote it down on my paper, and I continued to explain to her, and she would correct me. I feel. She said, I feel. And I said, being invested in this program, and then having those stresses every day, you want to put these things to the test. So I literally, to remind myself, I recognized that I had just forgotten the things that I had learned 20 minutes ago, and trying to explain myself had just forgotten. So my approach was to write it all over my paper 100 times. I feel, so that I can, in a way, that was my way of implementing it and putting it in, downloading it in my brain so that I would not forget. I've recognized that you learn something, stresses hit, you forget your techniques, and you go back to, your normal self. So I wrote that all over my paper, and as I was just going through my notes when I got home, I saw I feel 100 times all over my paper. So it registered to me that the next time that I was in those stressful situations, that I was going to pay attention to my delivery and try these techniques. Well, lo and behold, as we've talked for 2 weeks now, 5 visits, constant stress, nothing has changed in my stresses or in the way that I'm communicating with a specific individual. And I was able to immediately feel the energy on the other side, whereas my passion and truth always was responded in defensiveness, anger, wanting to be right. If I could just, I said, the way that my approach was bringing out the worst in that individual, and I felt that I was right. But just utilizing the techniques of I feel, trying to explain with my same truth, with my same, not same passion, but more of a calmer passion. Staying focused on the tact. I immediately felt the energy that was defensive, that was negative, be disarmed. It was not completely removed. In spurts, that defensiveness on the other side wanted to show itself again, and I immediately, when we got off track, I would go right back to my techniques and I would calm myself, because I was thinking about what do I want to get at the end of this conversation. Not being right. What I wanted is that we are on one accord, that our problems are solved. And here I am learning about solutions to solve problems, so it would be beneficial for me to utilize these techniques. So I did it. And immediately I felt the energy change. I felt me being able to control myself, recognizing my weaknesses, but yet feel empowered because I'm now being heard, and that the process of having that communication or conversation was now effective and not defective. So I had a response, and I'm talking about my wife. I think I've been married 16 years, so anybody who's watching this video, you can feel my pain. But I've never had this response from my wife ever in 16 years after an argument. Usually it takes about 3, 4, 5 days. A common take the kids to the park together, or watching a movie where eventually it just kind of, the negative energy just subtly passes. But that's always been the regimen. That's always been the thing. We argue 4 days to a week, maybe sometimes even a month. We don't reconnect and reconcile. But after our conversation and the things that I was able to say in the right tone, using the right methods, my wife came to me and said, I feel the need, I'm compelled to want to give you a hug. Ding, 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 jingle bells, light bulbs, and everything went off. And I said, aha, I finally found something that I can lean on in my distress. These things are very emotional for me, because for 16 years, you can think about trying to find those methods and having good intentions and wanting to better your relationship, but yet failing every single time. And the amount of stress when you are a good person and you want you want to do what's right, you want the best for the individual that you're in this relationship with, very, very stressful. And to have a moment of clarity, to have the instant reaction of peace and love and communication, put us in a different space overnight, in the blink of an eye. And so for that, I'm truly thankful. When I met up with Dr. Royster this morning when I came in, this burden was just off of me. My blood pressure for 2 weeks was high. They're asking me, you need medication, Are you taking water pills? Are you doing we need to focus, eat celery. We need to get your blood pressure down. Why? Because I'm having these constant stresses all day, every day, from my relationship to my businesses to, my goals that I want to accomplish. Everything is just pounding on me. And as this big bad football player, you try to suppress these stresses and you say, I'm positive, I'm gonna be all right. But you don't see is how it's impacting your blood pressure and your pains in your neck and stress, and you don't realize that these things are connected. Well, after my conversation with my wife, after that, I gave her a big hug, and we hugged in that moment. And even in that moment, I mean, truthfully speaking, we were talking about divorce. Even in that moment, we had a moment of reconciliation, still speaking our truths, which was not beneficial for what we were trying to accomplish, which is staying together, loving one another, and building a family, and giving our kids an environment that is conducive for their futures. The next day, it carried on to no arguments. Her mother is experiencing breast cancer, and she's in one of those rough moments, and we think that she's on her way, to the other side. And had an experience last night where her mother collapsed, and I asked her. Normally, she wouldn't want me to go with her. It's like she's trying to do this on her own, because the energy between us has been very negative, and it's more stress on her to have me in her presence than anything. And I just calmly asked her, would you like for me to go with you? She said, if you want to. And I said, absolutely. I drove her to her mom's house. I went right into with her mom. I began to rub her mom's back and rub her legs and hold her hand and kiss her hand, and I prayed for her. And my wife just hugged her mother, and she cried, and no words were spoken, just all love and affection. And after I stayed probably like 2 hours, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and she asked, she said she wanted to spend the night with her mom. And I'm leaving, and she calls me before I leave the driveway, and she says, "Well, are you haven't left yet?" And I said, "No, I was in the." She said, "Are you still here?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm still here." Well, she said, "Well, come tell me bye before you leave." And I'm like, "What? Are you kidding me?" I said, "Ding, ding, ding, ding." Light bulbs, jingle bells all over again. What is going on here? And I said, well, I'm in the car I was in the car already. I'm not inside, I'm in the car already. And she was like, oh, no, okay, all right, you can go. I said, no, she said, well, I just wanted to say bye. So I said, oh man. I got out the van and I said, just come to the front door. And she just gave me a big hug. Oh man. And amazing how peace finds you when you're willing to do the work. And I'm very blessed for this process, because I want the best for my family. I'm a God-fearing man, and sometimes even the good book, when somebody's not ready for it, yeah. So thank you so much. I appreciate this time and sharing my testimony with you. I'm a little bit emotional. I don't want to be seen crying. Love you guys.